the floor over to a good friend of mine. We've got this gentleman back. I think this is his third summit that he's spoken with. I've known Rick for over 15 years. We actually worked together at another big reseller years back. The very first time I met him, true story, he used to run the venture tech organization for Ingram Micro. And it was a big room like this, 500 people, and I see Rick Sbrocca swing in on a vine doing the Tarzan noise, and then he lands on a stage, you know, perfect athleticism, so that was good. I would be nervous I'd fall down if I did that. But anyway, he's the CEO of Spiritus Solutions and the author of the book Restless. So let us give a warm welcome to Rick Sbrocca.
Thanks, James. Let's have everyone stand up for a moment. And Mark, what time did you get up this morning?
4:45.
4:45. So let's put some energy in this room for Mark. He got up at 4:45 to be here. All right. And I think I traveled the farthest distance from Redding, California, up north. Anybody travel any further than that?
You got Boston over here.
Boston, wow. Let's give it up for these guys. All right, so this is an intimate group, so we can collaborate and have a customized presentation. And we're going to get into culture. And it's a good day to get into culture because that's one very cost-effective move you can make to change your business. It's the heartbeat of your business. It's the lifeblood. It's your practiced, that's the operative word, vision and values. It's your DNA. It sets a foundation for your success. And there's a direct correlation to your bottom line. So our one thing objective today is to increase your return on human assets through culture development. So to increase your return on human assets through culture development. Right? This is a business conference. James has done a lot to put all this together. So he asked me not to do any talking head presentation, to be very practical. So that's what will differentiate us. We'll be doers of the word. And somebody talked about making it happen a moment ago when I was watching Shark Tank the other night. And one of the guys that got funded said he was the VP of MIH at a private equity firm, and it was a VP of making it happen. So I thought that was pretty good. And he actually did make it happen because he got funded and he got Mark Cuban and the other guy, Mr. Wonderful, on his board, which was like a double win. It was the keyless or the automated lock technology. I don't know if anybody saw that one. So that's our objective. We want to have a stated objective and really empower you to go back and change your culture. And it's a buzzword, it's a soundbite. Everybody talks about culture, and not many people really know exactly what it means. So what are some of the trends on culture? We did a project a while back for Apple, and the reason they hired us to work on culture was because of the velocity and ambiguity in their business. And this was in the Apple retail stores where they were adding SMB reps to actually go out and bring in customers. And you can imagine the pressure on them to always innovate. I mean, we resell what these guys innovate, but imagine the pressure to always create the next best thing. And then have giants like Samsung come along, no disrespect, but commoditize it, and then that pressure's on you. So some of their folks were breaking down, and they've started to focus on this more and more. And you can go from Apple to Google to LinkedIn, Facebook. They're all focused on their versions of culture. And the trends are becoming more and more significant in terms of paying attention to it. The Harvard Business Review states that this is the margin of victory in the future, the war for talent, to recruit and retain your talent. And a big part of that is culture. And I was reading a study the other day by Deloitte, and I didn't look at the methodology of this. It sounded overstated, but it was saying that approximately 80% of the employees are dissatisfied with their work, thereby creating a sub-optimized culture. Now, I've heard 50 to 60%. That was extreme, but whether it's 50% or 80%, that's a pretty alarming statistic. in light of what the Harvard Business Review says. So why don't we pay more attention to culture? It's not going out and buying a new software app. It's not re-engineering workflow. It deals with people. And sometimes people are hard and we don't want to communicate. We don't want to communicate openly. We don't want to do reviews. We don't want to face conflict. We don't want to make sure we're investing the time for career development. So there's some things we have to get over in ourselves. But the great thing about culture is it really is a path of least resistance, change lever for you to pull in your business and get results. And I don't bet, but if I was a betting man, I would bet that we could find 5 to 25% productivity gains in your business just through culture. And that's not a theory, it's not doctrine, that's from our experience. And we've actually put together a Halo Network culture bundle that James is going to send to you after this with a step-by-step process that you can go through. It contains an employee survey, position description template, professional development plan, free access to strength finders, and free access to Myers-Briggs to get a handle on your culture. So what is culture? What defines culture? It really is a subjective term. You know, one of the best definitions, and one definition is practiced vision and values. So the key word again being practiced. If we went back to Enron in the day, and we walked into their marble headquarters of the Twin Towers in Houston, Texas, you'd see etched in marble respect, integrity, communications, and excellence. Were those their practiced values? Hell no. You know, it was lying, cheating, greed, fear. So I'm not here to tell you what your culture should be. I'm here to tell you that you need to be congruent. Whatever it is, you want to be congruent, have it be genuine. One of the best vision statements I've ever seen from a startup was, we want to make as much money as possible without going to jail. You know, I love that. I mean, it's real. It's going to recruit a certain type of people that just want to burn it for 2 or 3 years, make a lot of money, take the risk, and then get out. They're not talking about family values. They're not talking about a lot of other stuff. It's true. And there's actually a company in Shasta County where I'm from that's doing very well. If you walk into the CEO's office, right on his desk, it says, "Friends can't buy you money." So what's he telling the employees? He's telling them what the values are for that company. It's making money. He doesn't want friends. He wants money. And the company is actually succeeding. Their turnover's very high, but he's congruent. His true one thing motive priority is coming through to the employees. So that's the key in culture. We're working more and more with millennials, and the things I found lately to be very near and dear to them is that you're truthful, you're authentic, and you're real. And they can deal with a lot of things, but that's what they're looking for. So that's what we're going to go after. And we have a worksheet. Linda, if you and Austin would please start handing that out. And this will be very collaborative. We'll go through this together, and we've got a couple exercises. You know, Mark and I were actually at the Sales 2.0 conference last year in San Francisco. And the keynote speaker talked about 3 things. He talked about people, and he talked about process, and he talked about technology as being the priorities in business now. And he said that 65% of our focus should be on the people. The irony of the conference is that 80% of the conference was focused on technology and process. So we talk a lot about this. There's more to do. Is this resonating with you? Yes. And this is going to be completely open-ended. You drive it. It's an intimate group. And James is really a pilgrim to create a more intimate version of Venture Tech Network, Varnex, or Tech Select. where you actually get membership benefits in terms of management tools, access to the vendors, and changing business models. And this is a big one here. Ingram Micro's retained us later this year to help them with culture development for certain resellers and MSPs to get ready for the tidal wave that's coming because of the changes in your business model based on cloud technology. And it starts with culture, the DNA in that culture. So we're going to have Michael. Let's give it up for Michael for being the first volunteer. Michael's going to read this, and then we'll talk about what it means.
Hello? It's fine. Perfect. Are you ready?
Ready, go.
Okay. Number one, culture equals people. People create the culture, so the condition of your people is a condition of your culture. People are much more than commodities in business. They are the lifeblood. Business is meant to be both fun and a way to solve needs while earning a profit. Yet in some cases, money has moved from medium to master. People are the greatest competitive advantage in a business if they are properly cultivated.
Awesome, thank you, good job. So this sounds like a statement of the obvious, and it obviously is a statement of the obvious. The challenge is we don't always practice it. And we've all heard people are your greatest competitive advantage. And the former CEO of Ingram Micro, Jerry Stead, who was my boss, used to say, if I had $1 left in the company, I would spend it on training the people. And it wasn't some kind of cliche soundbite. It was genuine. And the people are infinitely scalable. And what we've done, because the competitive pressures are so great, that we've had to increase the pace of business to really focus on process and technology. And sometimes the people are commoditized into like a widget-like mode and plugged in, unplugged, turned over. And what we found by investing more in onboarding with some of our projects, we're able to get a much higher ROI over a longer period of time. I was in a presentation the other day, and it's a group of about 20 people, and the leader was talking, and he kept looking at his phone. And part of the presentation, he was talking about how many people he follows. So that's the extreme of what I'm talking about. But this is a big part of leading your team. It's really being there when they're talking. And if you're present, you're also going to see that their personal life is greatly affecting their business life. And we're not in the business of taking care of people's personal lives. I'm not talking about hiring people that are broken. I'm talking about the inevitable reality of people having challenges in their personal life that they bring into work. And if you're plugged in and you can respond to them in the appropriate way, that's going to help them succeed at work. Amen? Does everybody understand that? Has anybody experienced that lately at work? Great. So that's what this is about. It's very simple, but it's a great lesson to learn over and over, that you're simply there and you make time to listen. We love this one process that we've implemented in some of our projects named Salvatore Ambulando, which means it is solved by walking. And when somebody has a problem at end computing, you would see people all day long up there on the hill, Mark, just taking walks, and we'd address it right away. Because a lot of times you see the problem, you don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. They're emotional. It's just going to get worse. So what we decided is to take immediate action. And sometimes you can't, but many times you can. Just take immediate action, go for a walk, process it, find out what they need. A lot of people that we hire are in their early 20s, and they're still learning life skills, and they're coming out of a fatherless generation. So if you're gonna stay ahead of the curve and work with companies like Axient, Microsoft, et cetera, you're gonna be working in this genre, and you need to be plugged in. And the entire paradigm is changing from what we're seeing in the employee-employer relationship. And I fully understand we're in the state of California and there's laws, I'm well aware of that, that we all follow and honor. Under that, there's still more and more things that we're being called to do to bring this new generation into the professional workplace and help them succeed. And that's what our future success depends on it, if you plan on building a legacy that grows beyond yourself. So this is a vital lesson in people. It's very simple, but very powerful. You can use it on yourself, to parent yourself. You can use it with your children. You certainly use it with your employees. And I actually have to schedule things now. I have a weekly meeting with my daughter. I have a meeting with my son. It's working great. You know, at first they thought it was weird, but it's really working well. And my wife and I believe that business should have a family component and family should have a business component. And it works out very well when you have that, when you understand position descriptions, job descriptions, and you understand your role and the measurements. And in the business environment, there's a great benefit to that as well. So that's the first one. We're going to go to the second one now. Any questions, thoughts on that? Resonate with everyone? Basic, but imperative. All right, who wants to read on the second one? Michael started us out. Who's right here? Good job. Grab the mic and let it rip.
Okay, number 2, cultivate, love people. Love for life and people drive great cultures. Do you want to truly make the world a better place? Simple. Love your people. We are not talking about a weak form of love. We are talking about the strongest form of love that draws out their very greatness from deep within. Your team comes before the customer. Love them first, and they will love the customer. Love involves sacrifice, which is a key ingredient in building a thriving community. Take care of your people, and the tide of your organization will rise, and all stakeholder boats with it. Number 3, cultivator equals leader. The ultimate accountability for a culture's success starts and stops with the one person who has the highest degree of accountability for the overall organization. Leaders and culture sharpers are at every point in the organization. However, the overall leader sets the tone and holds the entire team accountable for honoring the code of the culture.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Great. So culture is the end result of what's cultivated by the cultivator. So we talk about culture, it's the result of what the most influential, powerful person in that organization holds to be most dear and infuses through the organization, resulting in that environment, that atmosphere. Is everybody with me on that? So we're gonna combine these, and the leader here, which would be you, experiences the E-myth in what's happening with culture. So the E-myth was all about the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur in the business, right? And the myth is that you could try and do all those, but you end up being the cobbler's son because you're a really great technician, but you're not a great manager and maybe not a great entrepreneur. So how do you overcome that in culture? Because this is primarily a technical environment. Most leaders of the MSPs come from a technical background. Is that a fair assessment? It can absolutely work. You look at Google, they certainly come from a technical background. Look at their vision statement. It's about organizing the world's information. It's not talking about people or anything. And you look at the 10 reasons why they matter. It's about the user experience, right? But if you go deeper into their people development department, which is their name for HR, they have great analytics and great focus on how to make the managers better. So the managers are accountable for having a vision statement. They are accountable for career development with the people. So it can work. And the leader has the authority, and if this doesn't come naturally to them, they can actually appoint a culture champion. We just helped a company where the leader didn't really care about any of this stuff. He just wanted to have the business work. We were able to find a person in the organization who was empowered by him, deputized, and she went out and did the work we're talking about to turn that organization around. So there's ways to do it. The other thing that's interesting is this study that showed the top leader isn't always the most influential person in the room. They actually wired people up to look at their biological responses to different people that were talking in the room. And they found that it wasn't always the person with the most power based on title that moved the organization. So you need to be able to recognize this, orchestrate your resources. The leader helps set the vision, allocate resources, and keep the team inspired. And sometimes you need help. I've seen companies that have culture committees, and they do it through committee. I don't like that word committee, but they do it through teams. So that's the way the leader can take charge of making the culture work. And on the loving people part, there's a very comprehensive view of love in this section. So the Greeks had 5 definitions of love. There was ludens, which was playfulness, mania, which was romance, erotica, and then there was pragma, which is business, and agape, which is sacrificial. So that's the comprehensive nature of being practical with your people and sacrificing for them to take risks and move ahead. You know, classic structure is the pyramid, right? King at the top, all the workers, they serve the king. You know, there's new models that are working now where that's flipped upside down. And the team truly is empowered. Because the obvious truth here, and listen to this, it's very important, that if you help your people succeed more and you invest more time in them with these tools, the tide's going to rise for the entire company. And what happens when the tide rises? What happens to all the boats?
They rise. They rise with it.
They rise with it, okay? So it blows me away why this sometimes is not done more. It's really, in some ways, if we can get over ourselves, which is the problem, it's our path of least resistance to real breakthrough. I'm not talking about going and buying a new CRM platform or re-engineering your entire workflow. This is investing the time with your team to really follow these proven steps which equal results. So you can do whatever you want. We've been brought into businesses where they said, you know, they were at 5 million, they wanted to get to 50. And we started really meeting with the people and empowering them. And we saw the path to it. The market was there and they could actually pull that off. But in reality, that's not what the owner wanted. The owner wanted a quality of life business where he held all the power, he controlled everything, and kept it at that $5 million range. And you know what? That's fine. He built the business. Not everybody wants to go change the world. A lot of the workers, the world changers left, and the mediocre to good people stayed. And that was fine. And there's been this trend to underpay people when they start and then tell them if they perform, you know, they're going to go up. And that's fine. We're actually finding great results when we overpay people to begin with, once we know they're the right person. And we just set the bar very high and have them always walking in extra motivated. Because what we're talking about here is the employee or the associate who comes in the morning and says, I woke up at 4 a.m. today and I have an idea on how to make things better. I think I know how we can support this upcoming cloud model and test it and take the risk out of it. Or the person that comes in and says, I thought of something in the shower. They're enthusiastic. This is what we talked about last year. People want to be inspired. And there's so much noise now, that's become a lost art and a lost science. And if you're not inspired, they're not going to be inspired. So it goes back to that. What spirit are you in? Are you excited about this business? Or are you just hanging on until you can exit? You know, what spirit are you in? We're talking about building a culture that's in a spirit of abundance, not scarcity. And a lot of times what we found is when the key leader is hanging on too tight, they really think there's a spirit of scarcity, that if some of the workers are empowered and they take risks, it's going to somehow lessen the success of the business. And when it's done right, it's just the opposite. So Michael is bringing up a great point, that the hiring process is so important. And James is an expert at this. And we have some information we can share with James to really nail that hiring process. Because the recruiting, if you don't recruit the right person, forget retention. It's not even going to come into play, because you're going to have a nightmare trying to get them out of the organization. And their metrics. It's amazing. It's pretty easy in sales because it's quota-based. In tech, you have your utilization rates, et cetera. But we find a lot of places where people aren't even entirely sure of exactly how they're being measured, and nobody's really coaching them. And the bottom line here is everybody wants to be made to feel significant. If you don't remember anything else, remember that. It's just the way we're wired, to be loved and to love. That's what that's our code. And so you want to plug into that, and when you hire them and pay them more relative to certain performance metrics, I've been blown away by some of the people we've hired right out of college, and we've onboarded. Some of them didn't even go to college. We've onboarded them at the End Computing Project, took about 2 months, and they went way beyond what we even thought. We set the bar very high, and then the ROI became very significant based on what we were paying them. And there's a lot of non-monetary forms of compensation. You can use that with the new generation more and more and more. They love adventure. They love time off. They love living in different places. You can design that a package that isn't just their base and their commission. You can have other forms of, and one of them's training, investing in their training, keeping them sharp. So thanks, Michael. That's good stuff. When I was at Ingram Micro, I was paid on 3 things. I was paid on associate delight, I was paid on customer delight and profit. So a third of my compensation was on how my team would evaluate the experience that they had in working on that team. It's pretty significant when it's done well, when it's done in a scientific manner, and it worked very well. So I'm going to speed up on some of these so we can have some open Q&A. James, where are we at on time?
We're good. 30 minutes.
30 minutes left? Okay. So I'm going to go through some of these. We covered the big 3, which is the culture, cultivate, and leader. Are there any questions or other thoughts before we start ripping through the rest of these? It's good? All right. Is this helping?
Yes.
Okay. So the family, we invest a lot of time after work on life skill development, putting people through like relationship coaching, Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, that type of thing. And if you can imagine 2 circles overlapping each other, the first circle holding the corporate goal in it. What is the goal of that corporation? Why does that corporation exist? And then you overlay the personal goal of the individual, or the dream. What's that individual's dream? Okay? And the common ground here in the middle is where they intersect. And if you can capture that and show them that by helping the corporation reach its goals, they're going to reach their dream, they'll be extremely loyal, which is a lost art in some organizations. So this part about family is very important, that we've done testing in these projects. And again, these are 20-something, 30-something workers. But we found that when we, under the right honoring of the law, invest more time after hours helping them get set up in certain areas to reach their dream, that it paid off with great results in the company. And we truly believe that our job as leaders in that company was to help them prosper. And of course, the individual has the most responsibility for their family, but business is a key part of that. If you take sleep out, and in fact, even if you keep sleep in, it's where many of us spend the majority of our time, right? So we want that to have a good impact on their family. If they're doing well at work, but their family's not succeeding, it's not going to work. Overall, it's not a comprehensive victory. It's not a complete life victory. So that's what this is. That's what this is referring to, is the ripple effect. And then that ripple effect goes out into the entire world. You know, I'm on the board of a company named Cloud Factory, and we're outsourcing a lot of transcription work from different companies, like Ancestry.com, et cetera, over to Nepal and Kenya, and it's employing thousands and thousands of workers and changing. You want to talk about families being changed, it's amazing. Just the simplest job with the smallest amount of money we couldn't even imagine, and it's changing the world. So that's what we have the power to do relative to building the right culture. And that company is all about social impact. It's doing it through this Cloud Factory model, but the heartbeat of the company is social impact. And we just received $3 million from the Rockefeller Foundation, so it obviously is becoming more and more of a priority. So let's look at, obviously culture cross-training. You're going to have a very diverse workforce, and especially in California, to pay attention to discrimination, harassment, honoring the company time appropriately is becoming more and more and more demanding, and you have to be on top of that, plan for that, and it's actually, in some ways, it's getting crazy, but there are ways to manage that. That factors into culture. If you have questions on these, write these down. I want to go through these quickly. Culture metrics. Again, it affects your bottom line, number one. And it's one of the most cost-effective things you can do to improve the success of your organization. And we have these 7 tools that James is going to be sending out. If you're interested, you can work through James, and he can guide you on how to implement those steps to get this rolling, depending on what grades you received in those metrics. Culture capital is innovation. Things are changing more and more and more. Cloud models coming, more and more things are going mobile, more and more things are being virtualized. And it doesn't just change from a technology standpoint. The big change that you have to, bless you, watch out for is the change in your business model, what you're talking about, Matt. This is being driven by a business model change where you want to smooth revenues and manage the churn rate, and that's going to help the company not be so schizophrenic with feast and famine business. So innovation is key, and if this is important to you, then culture management, culture leadership is vital. And starting to hire some people that are innovative thinkers and risk takers. And if you can't hire them, to then associate with them somehow. You can do it through Halo Network. You can do it through small groups. You can do it through vendor relationships. You don't have to spend a lot of money to do this. You do have to know how to orchestrate your resources. So this is mandatory, that we are going to have to become even more innovative than we are today. Just the way things are going. And part of doing that is number 9, I love this term, is culture composting. So what is composting? You have to keep parts, just like our body is always turning over cells and renewing every cell in the body, you have to do that in your company. It's okay, if you made a mistake, apologize. We were working on a culture project a while back, and the team was just dying for the leader to lead, and he had made some mistakes. And we were coaching him, and we asked him just to get up and apologize and then hit the reset button, They were so hungry for that, but he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't humble himself to do that. He had too much pride to do that, and that's his decision, it's his company. But it doesn't matter what's happened. At any point, you can hit the reset button. You can relaunch your culture. You can empower people. You can get things moving. The great thing I found, when the team's empowered, then they're a lot more accountable, and I don't have to do everything. You want to get the right people, of course. They're more accountable. And it's finding the right people that are hungry for that and giving them that empowerment, that coaching. And this new generation, there's a great ROI that you can get through having the right type of mentoring in your company, and they will receive that as a form of compensation, and they will stay longer and produce more. So this culture composting is key. And then lastly, culture of one, which is you. One of my favorite leadership presentations is Colin Powell's leadership presentation. You can look it up on the internet. I think there's 17 or so principles. And he talks about leadership as a lonely job. You're the one sitting at the top that's responsible for that organization. So it's vitally important that you're taking care of your culture. Where are you at with your life? What's inspiring you? Why are you in that business now? What culture do you want? What are you going to do about it? How are you going to reset yourself across the board for your complete life victory that's being realized through lifting up that company? So these are the 10 culture commandments. Don't drop them on the way down the mountain. And that's it.